Hello, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 460th edition of Tranquility du Jour. Delighted to be here with you today and to share my latest podcast interview with guest Jill Van Meter. And we discuss her passion as an equine coach, its many benefits, and you will definitely hear her passion shining through, and growing out gray hair. So that may seem random, but I have to say, as I was interviewing her and I pulled up a photo on Skype, I was like, "Oh, Jill, you look great. You went blonde." And she's like, "No, actually gray, it's a tiny image." And I said, "Oh my goodness, we must talk about this," because I think it's one of those things that many people are doing and getting more comfortable with and embracing. And then it's the how do we grow out period. I'm currently growing out my bangs. So I know the struggle of growing something out and how to kind of still feel like you're pulled together when things are kind of in an in-between stage. So I think you're going to really enjoy this podcast and learn a bit about working with horses, the joy of that, and then also really just kind of life and following life's passions in general. Now, if you're new to Tranquility, please check out the link in the show notes, which can be found at kimberlywilson.com/460. And you can also join bi-weekly love notes to access Tranquil Treasures. Now, in addition, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who reached out yesterday to honor my 46th birthday. I even had somebody send me this beautiful, Heather, thank you, this beautiful pig that she had colored for me, which was just so sweet. And it really means a lot. I have to say, the crazy thing is I woke up with a migraine, so I stayed in bed till about 11:30, but I must say staying in bed till 11:30 was actually quite decadent. And then I went to a yummy yoga class and I had Tim go with me, and we think this was his first yoga class in many years. So it was a delight. Came home, handled the pups, and then went down to H Street, which is this fun little area in DC, where I had reservations for this fancy vegan restaurant called Fancy Radish. And we had the 5 p.m. special because, we always have to work our lives around Mookie going to daycare, and they close early on Sunday night. So we went down early, hung out at a bookshop for a moment, and then went over and had an amazing meal at Fancy Radish. So it was just it really was a lovely evening, a lovely day, actually. And then whenever we got home, we called my parents. And Dad's like, "How old are you now?" Anyway, it was a really sweet weekend. And then on Saturday, I went to La Durée with a girlfriend, which was lovely. Introduced her to the world of rose lattes with almond milk. She was delighted. So thank you again. It's so funny the day after, because you're like, I'm no longer queen. I have to wait another year. And I have more peonies in this house than possible. My girlfriend I met up with at La Durée, she brought me this big bouquet of almost like coral peonies. And then Tim keeps picking them up at Trader Joe's because they have them. And we're going to be leaving. Actually, a week from today, we fly out. We're going to Venice for a few days and then heading down to Lucca, where I'll be leading a 1-week retreat, Tranquility in Tuscany. We still have 2 spots if you would like to join us. If you are ready to jet set to Italy, would love to have you. And just a heads up that maybe the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure kind of what scheduling is going to look like with regard to getting podcasts out. So just know if you don't hear from me until later on this month, that is why. But if I can get them pulled together in advance, I will definitely do that. And happy July to everyone. So just a mention of a few things that I have coming up, and 2 that are pretty new. Of course, Tranquility in Tuscany, I just mentioned. I'll be in Montreal September 20th through the 22nd, teaching there. Also, I'm doing a writing salon here in DC on October 5th. It's a 3-hour event. And then a 4-week event, Tranquility Salon, which is happening end of September. And then Pugs and Pints, our fall event, our fall fundraiser and friendraiser for Pigs and Pugs Project. Would love to have you come out. We did 3 micro grants over the weekend, so helping lots of pigs and pugs with our mission to make the lives of pigs and pugs happier everywhere, across the U.S. and beyond. So I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned in for the Daybook launch on Friday night. It was such a treat to be with you. And there's a link in the show notes to the recording of the event. It's a 75-minute video. And it also, that's one of the bonuses. And another bonus, of course, is a 1-hour workshop, a Spotify playlist, and a bunch of PDFs. And so you can get your Daybook over on Amazon, or you can get it as a PDF from my website. And there's a link to all of this in the show notes. Also, there's a link to my ballet debut, which I shared last week, and so I'll just share it once more. So excited about that. And also a link to the summer TDJ live recording. So would love to hear your thoughts on those. I hope they were helpful and useful. And again, so appreciate you guys joining in. I think we had people, the furthest was from Japan and Colombia. So thank you guys so much. So our featured guest is Jill Van Meter. She says, I've always been on a search to know myself and the world around me more deeply and profoundly. I've always longed to live a life of adventure and magic and sweet connection with people and animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid and an actress. Later, I wanted to be an animal keeper at the LA Zoo, and I took all kinds of courses towards that, including an internship at the zoo. Eventually, my interests changed to wanting to help people, wanted to help others as well as myself understand and embrace their innate beauty and essential mystery. I became a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, an acupuncturist, a massage therapist and a yoga teacher, and a meditation teacher, as ways to share my desire to guide people back to their own inner divine nature and back to their connection with nature and the world around them. I'm a certified coactive coach as a way to support and guide people back to their inner knowing and self-trust. I am becoming an equine guided coach as a way to learn from the magical and highly sensitive horse in order to live my life in a daily prayer of presence and truth, and to yet again share this path with those that resonate with it. Learn more in the show notes. Welcome, Jill.
Hi, thanks so much, Kimberly. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you, and I'm super thrilled to be chatting about equine therapy. You know, I've got this big, thick book. I'm going to pull it out real quick. This textbook in front of me called Handbook on Animal-Assisted Therapy, Foundations and Guidelines for Animal-Assisted Interventions. It's funny, It's part of my veterinary social work program. And I got stuck on it because I was supposed to read 82 pages, and this book is like huge, like 10 by 12 or something. And so I decided, I think I'm going to do the other modules first because it's so big. So I'm so happy to be talking to you, because then I can probably get a lot more insight into this equine therapy thing, which is so huge. So I'm so excited to chat with you about this.
Oh, me too. And a lot of the studying that I've done and that I'm doing, it's outside with horses. So it is kind of hard to dig into a book and really get the full feeling of it. Yeah.
Tell us about how you got into this, like your journey into equine therapy, and, what were you doing before then?
Okay. So, well, I want to start with talking about how honored, again, I am to be talking with you today. And I really feel like this is kind of a full circle moment for me, because your podcast was the very first podcast I ever listened to. And I think I started listening about 8 or 9 years ago. And I used to listen. I was really kind of unhappy with what I was doing. I was an acupuncturist and a yoga teacher, which is lovely, but I'd gotten kind of burnt out from doing it for a long time. And I was just kind of looking for more of a creative outlet for working with people. And I used to listen to your podcast walking on the beach here in San Diego. And I was so inspired by all of the women and the few men that you've interviewed. So I kind of feel like I've gotten to this point. Your podcast was one of my teachers, or you were my mentor in a way. So I wanted you to know that. And so I was looking for a way to really have the kind of life that these women that you interview talk about, that's really fulfilling and rewarding on all different levels. And so I finally realized that the reason I became an acupuncturist was because I really wanted to help people to really shift and transform their lives, but on all levels, not just a physical level. And so I decided to study coaching. And so I started kind of a rigorous coaching program a few years ago and got involved in that. And at the same time that I was doing that, because I live in San Diego, I had found out about a little house for rent just on the other side of the border in Baja. And I have several friends who have houses down there, and they all ride horses. And I had gone down to their houses and ridden horses before. And I just thought, this just seems like such a free and magical life. So I started renting a little house. It was about an hour down south over the border from my house in San Diego. So I was during the week working and doing my coach training program. And on the weekends, I was going down and riding horses on the beach. And this was a couple of years ago. And I never thought I was actually going to ride a horse because about 6 years before that, I had decided I wanted to ride horses after not riding for about 25 years. And then I got onto a horse, and the first time on a horse, the horse took off. I fell off and broke my hand. So I thought, in my 40s, I'm too old to be doing this. So I just gave up on horses altogether. But then, years later, I'm going down to Mexico and kind of got up my courage to get on a horse. And so all last year, every weekend, I was down riding horses, running on the beach with the horse, walking through rivers. It was just very free and magical. And I fell so in love with the horses and that life that I thought, wait a minute, I could merge my love of horses and my love of coaching and bring it together and really help people go deep into creating the lives that they want. And so that's kind of in a nutshell how it all came together.
Right. I love that. And I'd forgotten you were an acupuncturist.
Yeah. And I love acupuncture. It's gotten really westernized, at least where I've been working. And I just felt like I was working more on physical symptoms when I really wanted to be working with people's emotional state and their souls as well. That was just so important to me, to help people find like a life that they love, especially in the second half. So I'm kind of focusing on working with people who maybe their life is good and they've created some really great things, but there's this feeling that there's something more, that they're longing for something else. And like, how do I find that? How do I get that? Because I felt that for so long, but I didn't really have the tools or the way to kind of access what is it that's in there that needs to be unlocked.
Right. No, I love that. And I assume that's probably why you went into coaching, right? To kind of help with, sorting through that and helping others sort through that. And so I'm curious what are some of the benefits that you've noticed? Because, in so many therapeutic programs, settings, rehabs, there's so much about equine therapy. And I always thought, what is it about these huge, big, gorgeous beasts though? I mean, they're huge, right? That is so, empowering for people. So can you tell us, like, what have you found?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea with the horse and all animals, and I hear one of your animals snoring right next to you right now.
Always.
I know their snores so well from the podcast. I mean, I've heard every single episode you've ever done, probably again over the last 9 years. So
wow,
it's like so exciting for me to be here. But so the thing with animals and horses and even just nature in general is that it's about energy, and that it's all in the present moment. And I think so much about the yoga that you teach and the mindfulness that you do with people. And really, horses live right in the present. They're not thinking about the past. They're not worrying about the future. They're just right here and right now. And so in a way, because of that, time kind of slows down when you're around the horse, and you move into what we jokingly call horse time. And it really brings us into the moment and really connects in with what am I feeling right now? How am I feeling in my body? Real embodiment. It really just takes us right into that space that we're searching for when we're meditating or doing yoga, just by being around the horse. And so when we're in that state around the horse, we can start to notice, where is that anxiety in my body? Where am I noticing it? What am I noticing about the wind around me right now? What am I noticing is going on in my mind right now? So by slowing all of that down and bringing more awareness, right away we can start to observe and find places where maybe we're blocked or stuck, or there's an old story going on in our head. So that's the first way that the horse just automatically helps us. And then from there, there's a lot of other things. The horse is like, just reads energy. They're only feeling energy. So if I go to a horse and I'm feeling fear, the horse is going to start to feel fear, because the horse is going to start to read and take on my energy. And so if I'm coming to a horse and I'm out of balance, or I have something going on in my head that I'm just churning over and over and I'm really stuck, the horse is actually going to start to bring that energy into their own being and their space around them. And I'm going to actually start to be able to see it in their behavior or their movement. So horses are like a mirror. They're mirroring back to us what we're bringing forward, what our energy is showing to them. So it's a chance for us to really have kind of an outside observer. Now, if our boyfriend or our husband or our coworker says, you seem really out of balance and you're really negative, right away, we're going to get defensive. It's just a natural human nature. But because horses are completely non-judgmental, it's like we can take on the messages from them and really hear them in a way that maybe we can't from other people. So one of the stories I love about this for me is just recently I was at a training for the equine therapy or equine coaching, really. I'm not doing therapy. So the coaching is more working with people who don't need like a deep support and therapy. This is more of coaching, and again, letting people kind of see what's blocking them, how they could create a better life for themselves, or also like a confirmation on what's going well. Sometimes that's all we need too, you know? So I was there at this ranch, and we were all just kind of standing and just observing the nature around us and the horses around us. And I was just really feeling it in the moment. I just felt so contented and so happy at this gorgeous ranch. And I was looking at this beautiful garden, and my energy just was so open and so grounded. And this horse just started walking from kind of far away up to me, and just was obviously kind of drawn to my energy in this place of real contentment. And as the horse got right up to me, I was just about to reach out and pet the horse. My mind started going, I wonder if I could have a place like this. I'll probably never be able to have a ranch like this. I don't even know if this is going to work out. I don't even have a horse. What do I think I'm doing? And right away, the horse turned around and walked away from me. It's like it wasn't interested anymore. That's boring. That's old. That's an old story going on in my head, and he was interested in the energy when I was there and I was present. That was appealing. That was exciting. But the old junky stuff in my brain, that was just like, nah, not interested. I think I'll go someplace else. So a lot of times when you're working with horses and they do something and you're not sure, the first thing that we look at as the coach is, what was just going on in your mind right before that happened? And I think probably this is how you work, with the work you do. I'm imagining with your clients is, what's going on in your mind that's kind of creating this situation in a way.
Right, because our thoughts create our emotions, is one simple way to think about it. And so, yeah, your thought in that moment, like, shifted your energy, and in turn, the horse picked up on it.
Exactly. And so, it's just that quick and that easy that a horse is registering, because again, they're only registering energy. So it's not about if they like me or they don't like me. It's not personal. It's just like, where is the energy that I want to be around? And if we really get quiet and really feel, what's going on inside of us and in our bodies versus our mind telling a story, then we naturally are attracted to some people and not attracted to other people. And it's because we're being drawn to the energy that really is what we're wanting to be around. So sometimes if we're feeling negative, we want to be around a negative person because it kind of reinforces where our energy is at. So sometimes you see that too. So, and then the horse also helps us to expand our senses. So again, kind of being in the moment and being fully present. So when you're around a huge animal like that, you really need to be fully present and in the moment and aware of what's going on, especially if you're around more than one horse, because at times if they could actually back you into a corner in the arena or, so you just have to kind of be aware of what's happening behind you. So it kind of creates this 360-degree awareness in our lives. And I remember that with yoga too. And one of the first yoga teacher trainings I did, they talked about, with back bending. And I remember with Warrior One kind of going back, and it's like you're moving into this unknown space. And that's the courage of that pose. It's like, how much can we open our courage to really open up the space behind us, which is really the unknown as well. So enhancing our senses, how we connect to the nature around us. So that's a big part of it too. When you're working with the horses, it's not just the horse, it's the birds that might be around. It's the breeze, it's the wind. Sometimes somebody will be telling their story of what's going on with them, and suddenly the wind just starts to whip up. And it's something to be aware of. Like, wait a minute, what's going on in you right now while this wind is whipping up like this? There's something to that. So that's what I love about it, because I'm so in love with nature, and I felt really disconnected from nature for a long time, and just because of a busy life. And so I was really suffering. And it wasn't until I really consciously made time almost every day to be in nature, even just for a little bit, that I realized I need this for my soul. And this is my teacher. This is where I learn about myself. So that's a big part of it too, being out in nature. And again, the embodiment and the authenticity. So, a horse, you can't bamboozle or trick a horse, because again, they're reading your energy. They're not listening to what you're saying. So, to really, so many of us nowadays are really wanting to have this authentic life and to really be authentically who we are. And a horse is where you can do that and where you can practice that, because again, there's no judgment, and they're not going to respond to you if you're not truly who you are. Just like that horse who walked away from me. Suddenly I wasn't me. I was like all these old stories in my head. And so they're going to walk away. So if I'm authentic, that's what's going to create the relationship with the horse.
I love that, Jill. It reminds me of something that I talk about a bit, or that I have really been thinking about quite a bit over the past few years, which is present versus perform, right? So it's like the horse doesn't care if you have lipstick on, you know what I mean? And the horse doesn't care if you're like arriving in this great mood. The horse is more about like you kind of showing up authentically as you are, but also it's like kind of being in tune and present versus like in our head elsewhere. Is that accurate?
Oh my gosh, that's exactly right. And it shows up. It's so interesting because I have been an acupuncturist, and I've taught yoga and, meditation and all these things. They're all really similar to what you're getting with the horse. It's just with the horse, it's just so right in your face. Like, and it's true. I mean, sometimes I think our masks that we've worn for so long, we don't even realize it's a mask. And that's kind of how I was feeling. I'm thinking, I'm not authentic to who I want to be, but I don't even know how to get to that point. I don't know how to take this mask off. And with the horse, it's just so blatant. If you're not coming from a pure place within yourself and pure energy, the horse is going to have some kind of a behavior or a movement or something that's going to start to show that to you. So, but you can get it in other ways too. And I love what you're talking about of, what was it, presentation versus performance.
Right.
Yeah. And presence is like the main word I think about with horses, like being present, who you are, not performing because the horse is not interested.
Not impressed.
Not impressed at all. Yeah, I had many a horse walk away from me when I thought I was so cute and so charming and saying just the right things to woo them over to me. And they just don't care. They just want to be around energy that feels balanced and authentic and healthy and real.
Well, and I think you raised a good point earlier too of how, like, we get that same way with people. It's like it may not be very conscious, but, after we've had an interaction with somebody or spent, some time with somebody, maybe during the holidays, a family member, or, whatever, and then you're just like, God, I just feel icky, or I just feel heavy, or I just don't feel right, and it's not like there's anything wrong with the other person, but just energetically, it's just like something was not meshing.
Exactly. And so we have this already within us because we're animals too. But we've got this other thing called our brain or our mind, which, it can tell us stories. It can lie to us. It can, bring false narrative. And so when we really allow ourselves to listen to our own intuition and our instinct, which is what the horse teaches us, then we really understand, what is my body trying to tell me about this situation? And that's how you start to access more and more that deeper wisdom and deeper information within yourself. And we're probably already feeling it, like, ooh, I really like this person. Or like you said, ooh, that holiday dinner with Uncle Joe really didn't feel so good. And it's not to say that maybe you're not going to ever see Uncle Joe again, but you're registering and you're understanding more and more who you are. I don't know. It's weird. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about how when our country became industrialized, what happened was, for the employer's benefit, they decided that we would all eat lunch at noon because it was just easier to have all the employees eat at the same time at noon. So what has happened over time is that we all eat lunch, well, in general, but like in a corporate thing, we all eat lunch at noon, or we think lunchtime is around noontime. And it's not based on whether we're hungry or not. It's not based on what our body is telling us. It's based on someone else telling us that we should eat at that time. And so you think of all the ways that our culture kind of pushes away, or kind of helps to create this disconnect from our brain and our body. And this is about authenticity. Authenticity is about coming back and bringing them together and becoming more connected with what's really going on, so that we can be authentic and real with ourselves about what we need, and then with other people.
What would you say has shifted in your life, right? Because it sounded like you were really in a seeking position whenever you began working with the horses. And so I'm just curious, what have been the ripple effects from it?
It has been so profound. And I've done a lot of different things, but I just feel like things, in terms of studying and self-growth and all of that, but I feel like the coaching and the work that I've had done by a coach, and that I'm learning and that I've seen, has just moved me so much more quickly. It just seems to right away get to the core of things. And so I'll say that the main thing, there's so many, but the main thing that I've really noticed is there is a core of trust and dependability, trustability in who I am now that I did not have before. It's kind of like I've come home and I'm settled there. And now, no matter what is going on around me, no matter how loud, chaotic, distressful, whatever, I still have this sense of self that used to kind of, I'm a bit of a helper type. And I'm sure you are too, from all the things you do. So when someone needs something or was in distress, I would kind of almost leave myself to go to them and help them. Well, I don't have to do that anymore, because that was kind of losing myself and being so concerned about other people that I wasn't connected in with my needs. And so I just feel like I'm more centered, I'm more grounded, and the working with the horse really helps you to come into your own place of leadership. What is the leadership? Who am I in the central role of my life? And that's kind of where I feel like I am, that I just don't get lost in the stuff around me anymore.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that is
Huge.
such a profound shift.
That's everything right there. If you've got that, then everything else is workable, you know? Yeah, I feel it feels amazing. It feels incredible. And it's tested a lot, as life will do, but I have found this to be the greatest lasting change that I've ever had with any of the work that I've done, where I actually see changes in who I am and how I react and how I am with other people. Yeah.
And how would you encourage or recommend that people kind of get a chance to dabble in this? Like, I mean, I do feel like there's equine therapy. I haven't heard equine coaching. So maybe like, in certain areas it's called coaching is actually just called therapy. But I'm curious, like, where do you find this? It's like, how can we actually get to meet with and partake in this?
Well, I think there's kind of two separate camps, and they're not, at odds with each other, but there are people who are actual therapists who work with, a lot of times they are working with children with autism. They're working with kids with handicaps. They're working potentially with veterans who are coming back from war and going into kind of a deeper emotional process as a therapist. And then there's this whole other arena where, again, working with people who maybe they don't have as extreme of issues, and then that would be more of the coaching. And so there's a lot of people doing it all over. And there's some organizations that I can give people through your website where they could contact, and people can also contact me if they're in an area and they would like to see if I can refer them to somebody. I know a lot of people who are doing it all over the country, so I would be happy to do that as well. But you definitely want to be with somebody who has some kind of a certification. It's just like any kind of coaching now, just about anybody can do it. And it's not to say that somebody who doesn't have a certification isn't good at it. But for me personally, I just like to know that I'm with someone who's really done some training and some work on themselves, which a certification program asks you to do, not just go and, work with other people without kind of doing your own self-discovery and self-work.
Right. No, I think that's such a good point. Such a good reminder.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So, but it's all over now. It's getting more and more popular. And I'll just say also, with the coaching that I do with people over the phone or through Skype, I'm bringing in all of these principles that I'm working on with the horse. So you don't actually have to always do the work with the horse. There's ways to bring it in. And I'll just tell you kind of one little cute thing that I've been working with people in the coaching on is, so when you have a herd of horses, so that's a group of horses, every horse in the herd has a different job. And it's really, really important that each horse knows its job and that two horses don't have the same job. Because there's one horse who, the minute they get the signal that it's time to run, because they're a prey animal, they have to protect themselves. So you don't want to have two leaders going, I think we should go this way. No, I think we should go over this way. Like, you have to have one leader who says, go, and this is where we go. And then you have to have the person who's on the lookout to see if there's something coming. So that horse has to have that job. If that horse isn't doing its job, then nobody knows that they have to run and protect themselves. So it's really neat. And that actually works with when you're working with people in businesses or corporations. You bring them out to work with the horses, and then you can see what's everybody's place in the herd. And are, several people trying to do one job when maybe that's causing the problem that someone else, one of those people, needs to realize, oh, I'm better at this job over here. But so when I work with people over the phone, we talk about creating their allies. And this is like inner energies or wisdoms that have different places in the person and make different decisions in the person's life. So, you have your great spirit or higher self, your deep inner wisdom voice. And then maybe you have the voice that, says, get up and go, and you're going to do a great job, like the cheerleader voice, that part of you. And then maybe you've got, the one that's, you need to rest. You really need to, you're pushing too hard, right? So creating all these different voices and getting really clear with them in coaching is really important, because you can create all these amazing allies within yourself. And so I talk with people about creating their own herd. Like, how do you create the herd? Who's the one that's going to protect you and tell you when you need to move? Who's the one that's guiding you? So it's kind of fun to bring the horse work into just regular coaching.
I love that. I think
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's like bringing all these different parts of ourselves together and recognizing that they're all important, and that we all, and they need roles, right? They need jobs to do.
Right. And we can use them. I mean, our life could be great if we have this team, this herd of inner parts, and each one knows what its job is. Like, I've got my rock star part, who's kind of my rebel, wild guy who, if I'm playing it a little safe, every now and then I got to call that voice into play to kind of rock my world a little bit and get me doing some kind of crazy daring stuff again. So it's really fun.
Well, one thing too, Jill, that is a total kind of aside from all of this equine loveliness is whenever your Skype photo popped up, I was like, oh, you're blonde now. And you were like, no, I'm actually letting my gray grow out. And I loved that because A, it looks fabulous on you, but B, it is one of those things that we were talking about before we started recording that I think so many women are doing and embracing now, and they look freaking phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a scary thing before you do it. And I'll tell you, the growing out part, I mean, I'm not completely gray. I still probably have about another 8 months, but the growing out part is challenging. But, it's funny, the archetype of the horse, the energy of the horse, or what the horse seems to represent to human beings, is kind of a freedom from restraints, strength, and dignity. And that's kind of how I felt since I finally made the decision. It's, again, part of this wanting to be more authentic and be more of who I really am, and stop trying to be something that I think society wants me to be, or that society says is acceptable. And so the horse archetype kind of supported me in making the choice to just be real and just be authentic. And so I do feel more free, and it's just like very rebellious and kind of revolutionary to say, this is who I am. Like it or lump it. I don't care what anybody says. Like, this is me and I'm good with it. It's kind of part of that coming home to myself and my essence, and living from that space more and more, and just saying, gosh, I get to be whoever I want to be now. So it's exciting. Kind of crazy, but exciting. And all the young kids love it.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, too, as you had mentioned earlier before we began recording, like there's Pinterest, right? There's all these beautiful images up. And then also there's a lot of Instagram handles, too, of like this gorgeous gray hair.
Yeah, I have so many women come up to me in their 40s and 50s. I'm in my 50s. And they say, oh, I wish I had the courage. Oh, I wish I could do it. And I say, you can do it. You can do whatever you want to do. And they're like, oh, no. And I tell them what I did was on Pinterest, I got as many photos as I could of beautiful women, older, younger, in between, with gray hair. And there's so many beautiful women who just look amazing with their hair, natural and real. And that's what's really inspired me and kind of kept me on this journey, which has been it's a long time growing it out. So
any tips with growing out? Because I always kind of wondered when people start growing out, like why, and this might not be possible, but why not the kind of like streaking in between the gray with like the old color to kind of try to keep it a little uniform as it grows? But I don't see that. So I know there must be a reason why that isn't done.
Okay, this is a little bit beyond my ability of understanding, but what I've heard from several stylists over the past just over a year that I've been doing this is, because I said, why can't I just bleach it? Why do all these young girls have awesome looking gray hair and I can't? Why do I have to go through this grow out? And they said, because I've colored it for so long that if I was to bleach it and then put silver, it would look weird. But then I also talked to somebody who had a friend who went to a stylist and they did do her hair that way. And she said it looked great. So to be honest, I never really pursued it that much. I kind of just started it. And the way that mine has grown out, people seem that I have purposely gone to a hairstylist and done this. So I guess it's kind of growing out kind of cool. And so I've just kind of just letting it do its thing. I do think I'm going to cut it a little shorter. So that's one of the ways, you just start cutting up into it and let it come out. So I think I'm at the point where I might do that, but I really haven't researched it that much, to be honest.
Well, I love how people come up to you and they're like, "Oh, I love your ombre."
Yeah. Oh, they call it a grombre now.
Oh,
isn't that hilarious? It's called a grombre.
I love it.
Yeah, but it really goes to, again, just this idea of with the horses and when I was riding horses at the beach in Mexico, and it was just, I'm in nature and I'm part of nature and I'm okay exactly how I am. I don't have to embellish myself to be okay. It's just part of this bigger, deeper learning, I feel like, that I'm going through, and that I want to help other women especially go through as well, that you're beautiful and amazing just as you are right now. And that is what the horse shows you and displays to you and mirrors back to you.
I love it. I love it. It really is inspiring. Do you know who Linda Rodin is?
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Oh my God, I love her.
One of my idols.
Mine too. Yeah, she's amazing.
Incredible. I know. But I just have to say one more thing about, I didn't mention how I had gone to Paris on one of your retreats. And I think it was 4 years ago, 4 years ago in June.
Yes.
And I had just lost my dad about 5 weeks before he had passed away. And I actually had never been to Europe, and I got there a few days early, and then I stayed about another 5 days after the retreat with you, which was spectacular. If anybody listening ever can go on a retreat with Kimberly, you must do it. It is transformative and beautiful, and she's just such a glorious hostess.
Thank you.
But that trip was really profound for me because I realized this is it. That like I had just turned 50, and my dad had just passed away, and I thought, I can't keep saying someday I'll do that. Someday I'll get to that. I can't, someday may never come. This is it. Like, it was just such a wake-up call. And that trip really for me was about, it's time to live. And I just really felt like on your retreat, you really ingrained that, like, just enjoy every single little taste and smell and sight in Paris, which again kind of goes to the horses, opening our senses, expanding our senses that way. And that's what you do in your retreats. And that's how I actually ended up getting a little place down in Mexico. I had always wanted to do that. And by being on your retreat and kind of traveling a little bit on my own as well, it gave me the courage to actually go down and have a little house in Mexico and start horseback riding. So I do, again, feel like you and your podcast have really been so important in bringing me to where I am. And I just have to say thank you so much for all of the inspiration and the detail and the care that you put into everything you do.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. And it's so funny that you say this because I remember you on that retreat. And I don't know if you remember this day. It was Wednesday. It was after we had done La de Rey. And, and then we all went and kind of rode at Café de Flore. And then, I saw you on the street corner and I was like, oh, so where are you going to go next? And you're like, I don't know. And I was like, well, do you need help getting back to the hotel? I know you're a big girl, but it's like, I always feel like, mama hen or something. And you're like, no, I'm fine. I'll figure it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. Her spirit is just like, I'm going wherever Paris takes me,
I can't believe you remember that, because for some reason that was a super poignant moment for me as well. And what it made me realize is that I actually love getting lost and just wandering. I think I spent that whole first time in Paris just lost. And I really learned about Paris. I really got to know the place, and it was just really magical. And I remember exactly where I went that day. So it's so funny that you remember that. But yeah, that was so special. So special. So.
Well, my last question for you, Jill, is the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour. And I think we probably already know how you find tranquility in your everyday. But I'm curious, are there any particular rituals or, even things around horses that help to infuse your days with little bits of tranquility?
Well, I had a feeling this question was coming since I'm a regular listener. And so what comes to my mind first and foremost really is for me about being in nature. So even if that means sitting in my backyard for a few minutes every day or, walking in a really pretty area. We've got lots of pretty areas here in San Diego, just somehow connecting. I know you love fresh flowers in your house. You've always said, and that's another way I feel like I can connect to nature. So it can be really little things. It sometimes feels like life is so overwhelming that just adding anything else can be too much. But we can find this peace and contentment and fulfillment with just the smallest things. So again, a pretty card that I just lean up against my nightstand, or fresh flowers, or a little conversation with a really good friend, versus texting. I think it's so hard to get people to talk on the phone, and it's so special connecting that way. And spending time by myself. It's really important for me. I spend a lot of time by myself, and it's really soothing and healing for my soul because I work with people all day long and talk with people. And so taking just that little bit of time. And also, I really try to get 8 hours of sleep every night. For me, that's a really big deal. That's kind of my core foundational tranquility du jour treat.
Mm-hmm. Sleep is the best.
I know. And that's like the first thing that seems to go. But, a good night's sleep makes all the difference in the world, how my energy is and how I'm relating to the world around me.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, for being here with us and sharing all this great information about horses and presents and beautiful gray hair. And it's just a total treat.
Oh, thank you. It's just really, again, just feels kind of like just such an honor and kind of a full circle for me to always be wishing that I could be one of the women that you interview. And then here I am. It's just, I can't tell you how much it means to me. So thank you.
Thank you. You can find Jill at jillvanmeter.com. Also on Facebook at jill.vanmeter.3 and on Pinterest at Jill Van Meter. So closing up for today, I just want to remind you that there are videos over on YouTube. My latest Tea with Kimberly came out last week, and I also have a link to that in the show notes. And feel free to subscribe to that YouTube channel, and then you will get reminders or updates every time a new video comes out. And maybe I'll just do one from Italy. There's also a link to the Tranquility clothing line, my 6 books, e-courses, the Tranquility du Jour podcast app, and my passion for animals. So as a reminder, if you have a moment to pin a review on iTunes or share this podcast via social media, I would be so grateful, or to pin a review of any of my books on Amazon or Goodreads. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Happy July, and namaste.